Adolf Hitler was born on April 20th, 1889, in a small town in Austria. His father, Alois, had a difficult life as a young man and worked hard to reach the middle class. Alois was strict and serious, while Adolf's mother, Clara, was gentle and loving. She cared for Adolf very much and always tried to protect him from his father's anger. Adolf grew up with mixed feelings. He feared his father, but deeply loved his mother, who showed him care and support no matter what he did. Alois had a complex family history. His mother, Maria, was single and worked as a housekeeper for rich families. She left Alois's father's name off his birth record. When Alois was older, Maria married a man named Johann Hiedler, who was later listed as Alois' father. But a mistake made their last name Hitler instead of Hiedler. The name Hitler meant someone who lives in a hut, a simple home, and the family kept this name. It became one of the most famous names in history later on. When Adolf was young, he was often restless and did not do well in school. He disliked studying and did not follow rules easily. His father was very upset about this. Alois wanted Adolf to work hard and be disciplined, but Adolf did not listen. He was not interested in the serious jobs his father suggested for him in the government. Clara, however, thought her son was special. She gave him comfort and support, even when he didn't try his best. She always had faith in him, which made him feel proud. At 8 years old, Adolf began to sing in the local church choir. His mother was thrilled and thought he was very talented. She even paid for him to have private lessons. Adolf dreamed of becoming a priest, and he liked the attention he got from others in the church. For a moment, it seemed that he might follow a peaceful and kind path, but his behavior remained a problem, as he was lazy and got into trouble. His teachers did not think he would become anything special, which made his father disappointed. When Adolf was 11 years old, a very sad event changed his life. His younger brother Edmund became sick and passed away from a disease. Adolf was heartbroken. He visited his brother's grave often, lying beside it late into the night. This made him feel alone and left him with a strong sense of sadness. After Edmund's death, Adolf became a different boy. He spent more time alone, and people noticed he seemed angrier and quieter than before. With his brother gone, Adolf now had fewer family members he felt close to. His mother was his only source of comfort, as his father grew even more demanding. Clara continued to care for her son and support him. She wanted him to feel loved and important, but she could not calm the anger he felt growing inside him. His father, on the other hand, only became stricter with him, hoping Adolf would take life more seriously and follow the rules better. But it did not help him change. In 1903, when Adolf was just 14, his father Alois passed away unexpectedly. This loss had a big impact on him. Now only his mother remained. Without his father, Adolf dropped out of school at 16. His mother did not force him to go back. Instead, she let him do as he pleased, giving him freedom without limits. Adolf started spending more time alone, dreaming about his future and feeling that he was special. He began to believe he could do great things one day. But instead of working or studying, he spent his days wandering through town. He wore fancy clothes and pretended he was wealthy, even though his family was not rich. Adolf's mother continued to spoil him, believing in his talents and ideas, even when he showed no signs of hard work. He felt entitled to an easy life. With his mother's support, Adolf dreamed of becoming an artist, telling people he would one day be famous for his art. But he never took real steps toward his goals. As Adolf grew older, he became more distant from other people. His family noticed that he was spending more time alone and seemed troubled by something. His brother's death still haunted him, and he didn't have close friends. Adolf often spent his days wandering, deep in thought, without speaking to others. His mother, Clara, was worried about her son but did not know what to do. She still supported him, hoping he would eventually find his way in life. Adolf stopped going to school altogether when he was 16. He disliked school rules and thought it was pointless. He dreamed of living a grand life as an artist. However, he never put effort into his art, and his skills weren't impressive. Many who saw his work thought it was ordinary, but Adolf believed he had great talent. Clara didn't push him to find a job or return to school. She kept thinking he was special and hoped he would make something of himself someday. By age 17, Adolf wanted to attend the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna to study painting. He applied and was confident he would be accepted without any trouble, but his dreams were quickly shattered. The Academy rejected his application, saying his art was not good enough. Adolf was shocked and deeply hurt by this rejection. He believed that he was meant to be a famous artist, and now his hopes were crushed. Adolf felt ashamed and frustrated, unable to understand why he had failed. Instead of accepting his failure, Adolf blamed the Academy. He insisted that they simply didn't understand his talent and thought they were unfair to reject him. He became angrier at the world and started to lose faith in other people. He told himself that only he knew what he was truly capable of doing. Adolf's life became even more isolated as he refused to accept help or advice from anyone. His mother continued to support him, but he often ignored her kindness. Adolf continued to struggle with his art, but he never gave up his dream of becoming famous. He convinced himself he would still find success, no matter what happened. His confidence, however, came from pride, not skill. He had no real direction in life and didn't realize he needed more than dreams to succeed. When Clara fell ill, Adolf felt worried, but he was still focused on his dreams. Even though he depended on her, he did not help much with her care as she grew weaker. In 1907, Adolf's mother, Clara, passed away from cancer. He was heartbroken. Clara had been his main support and protector throughout his life, and now she was gone. Adolf felt a deep sense of loss and emptiness. Without his mother's encouragement, he struggled to feel confident. He felt lost and had no one to rely on for support. He spent many days feeling hopeless and alone, and he wandered around Vienna with little purpose. His sadness and frustration seemed to take over every part of his life. With his mother gone and his art career uncertain, Adolf struggled to survive. His father's money was gone, and he was often hungry and homeless in the streets of Vienna. He asked friends and family for help, but many of them had little to give. They advised him to get a job, but Adolf refused, still believing he deserved a better life. He was disappointed in people, thinking they didn't understand him. Instead of working, he continued to paint, hoping that someday his art would bring him success. For a short time, Adolf made some money by selling small paintings to tourists, but it was not enough to live on. He moved between cheap homes and shelters as needed. Adolf felt resentful toward others who were better off, feeling they had taken what he deserved. He thought his hardships were unfair and felt the world owed him success. This sense of anger and bitterness began to grow within him. Instead of accepting his struggles, he blamed others and became convinced that life was unfair to him. He thought people who rejected his dreams simply did not see his greatness. This belief drove him to feel separate from everyone else, making him lonely and distant. His self-worth depended on his view that he was meant for something big, even if no one else saw it. Adolf held on to his dream, despite all the hardships he faced, but this dream of greatness also made him blind to his own faults. Rather than changing, he held on to his anger, which would lead him down a dark and harmful path later. In 1913, Adolf moved from Austria to Munich, Germany. He hoped for a fresh start, though he still had little money and few skills. In Munich, he continued to paint, but made just enough to get by. When World War I started in 1914, Germany was filled with strong national pride and enthusiasm. Like many young men, Adolf joined the German army. For the first time, he felt like he had purpose and direction, and he took pride in serving his country in the war. The army gave Adolf a sense of order and routine he had never had before. He was a soldier in the trenches, facing dangers and hardships, but he followed orders well. Adolf was serious about his duties and gained respect for his discipline. By the end of the war, he had even earned a promotion to corporal, which made him proud. However, when Germany lost the war in 1918, Adolf was deeply disappointed. He believed that Germany should have won and looked for others to blame for the loss. After the war, life was difficult in Germany. The country was facing a severe economic crisis, and many people were struggling to survive. Adolf, like many other soldiers, had no job or income. The hardships of war had left him feeling lost, and he was angry at Germany's defeat and how things had changed. Many Germans believed the war had been unfairly ended, and some began to blame certain groups, especially Jewish people, for Germany's troubles. As a struggling ex-soldier, Adolf began listening to groups that shared his anger. He became drawn to the German Workers' Party, which later became the Nazi Party. The group's ideas matched his growing frustration. They believed Germany needed a strong leader and that Jewish people were responsible for many of the country's issues. Adolf joined the party as a member. His confidence in public speaking and strong beliefs soon helped him become one of the party's most influential voices. Adolf's speeches drew large crowds. People admired his strong words and clear ideas, and he was able to make people believe in the party's cause. The Nazis promised to make Germany great again. They gave people hope during a hard time, and many believed Adolf could lead them out of their misery. He used the people's anger and hope to grow the Nazi Party, making promises that Germany could once again be powerful and proud. He gained followers and funds to expand. By 1923, Adolf felt powerful enough to try to overthrow the government. Along with over 2,000 Nazis, he marched into Munich in an event known as the Beer Hall Putsch, but this rebellion failed. Adolf and many of his supporters were arrested for trying to overthrow the government. This failure, however, did not end his ambitions. Instead, Adolf used his time in prison to write a book, Mein Kampf, or My Struggle, where he shared his ideas about Germany's future and his strong views on society. Mein Kampf became popular in Germany. People were curious to understand Adolf's ideas. Many thought he had a unique vision, even if his views were extreme. The book helped Adolf become famous, and people started to see him as a potential leader. He became more determined to reach his goals, feeling destined to lead Germany. After his release, he returned to the Nazi Party, more powerful and influential than before. He continued giving speeches that gained more and more followers. The Nazi Party grew rapidly during the 1920s, especially as Germany's problems worsened. People were looking for answers, and Adolf's promises sounded like solutions. He claimed he could fix the economy and bring pride back to Germany. By blaming certain groups, he created a common enemy, giving people someone to blame for their troubles. His powerful words and promises led many to support him, believing that his plans could restore Germany's former glory and solve their daily problems. In this way, Adolf slowly gained power and became more famous. He took advantage of the people's anger and sadness, offering simple answers to complex issues. His rise to power was just beginning, But he would soon change Germany and the world forever. His ambition and confidence would lead to a dark chapter in history. Adolf believed his vision was right and that he could shape the future. His ideas spread across Germany, leaving a deep mark that would affect millions in the years to come. In 1933, Adolf Hitler's hard work in the Nazi Party led to a major achievement. He became Chancellor of Germany, one of the highest government positions. With this role, he quickly started changing Germany. He wanted total control and began removing anyone who stood against him or the Nazis. To ensure power, he created new rules. One law ended freedom of speech, and people who spoke against him were punished. Many felt afraid to speak their true thoughts. Adolf's goal was to make Germany strong again. He promised jobs and prosperity. Many Germans, who were poor and hungry, believed he would improve their lives. Factories opened, and more people were put to work. Hitler wanted to build a strong military as well, which gave even more people jobs. His popularity grew as people felt hopeful. Adolf convinced Germans that they were part of a master race, a group he claimed was better than any other. Hitler blamed others for Germany's problems, especially Jewish people. He spread lies, saying they were enemies of the state, and people began to believe him. He used fear and hate to make people turn against Jewish citizens, creating new laws that took away their rights, jobs, and property. These actions led to violence, with attacks on Jewish businesses and homes. Many Jewish people tried to leave Germany to escape these harsh rules and dangerous actions. By 1939, Adolf had gained so much power that he began planning to expand Germany by invading other countries. His army took over Austria, then parts of Czechoslovakia. This aggressive expansion worried other nations, but Adolf ignored their warnings. He believed he could take more land without resistance. Then, he ordered an invasion of Poland. This act was the start of World War II, as other nations could no longer ignore Germany's growing control over Europe. Adolf's military moved quickly. They invaded one country after another, causing massive destruction and suffering. Many soldiers and civilians lost their lives in battles. Adolf's ideas of a master race led him to target more groups, not just Jewish people, but also others he considered inferior. He set up concentration camps where millions of innocent people were taken, treated harshly, and forced to work or face death. This was known as the Holocaust. As the war continued, many people in Germany and other countries began to see the true cost of Hitler's rule. Families were torn apart, and fear grew as his power spread. Despite the destruction, Adolf refused to stop, believing his plans were worth any amount of suffering. His ambitions led to suffering across Europe and beyond. Many nations, like the United States, joined the fight against Germany to protect their own countries and stop Hitler from taking more lives in land. As World War II continued, the damage caused by Hitler and his followers grew. His extreme beliefs turned Germany into a place of fear and cruelty. The Nazi government controlled every part of German life, and those who disagreed with them were punished or forced to leave. Some brave people in Germany tried to resist, but it was dangerous. If they were caught, they faced jail or even death for speaking against the Nazi rule. Adolf's desire for power never seemed to end. As his armies moved further, he ordered them to take anything valuable from the countries they invaded. He believed these things belonged to Germany, and he even took art, gold, and land from people in other countries to make himself richer. This brought anger from around the world. Nations that were attacked suffered greatly, and they were determined to fight back and stop the spread of Nazi rule. The war became harder for Germany as more nations fought against them. Adolf's decisions became risky and led to many defeats. His once powerful army started to weaken. Soldiers and citizens were tired and hopeless. By 1944, Germany was losing ground, and people were desperate for the fighting to stop. But Hitler refused to surrender. He ordered his army to keep fighting, even though defeat seemed certain. His pride and ambition blinded him to the losses his own people were facing in the war. By 1945, Adolf's war had caused suffering across Europe. The German army was weak, and many towns were in ruins. Germany was surrounded by the Allies, who opposed Hitler. The Allies were powerful countries like the United States, the United Kingdom, and the Soviet Union. They had joined forces to stop Hitler's rule and protect Europe. Adolf refused to admit defeat. He hid in a bunker under Berlin with a few of his followers. He still believed he could turn things around, even as Germany faced disaster. The bunker was dark and crowded. Adolf's closest followers, including his partner Eva Braun, stayed by his side. Eva had always been loyal, even during the darkest times. Adolf's mood grew worse each day, as he knew Germany was losing. He blamed others for his failure, refusing to accept responsibility for the country's suffering. As Soviet soldiers neared Berlin, Adolf finally realized there was no escape. He made a choice that shocked his followers and would soon mark the end of his life. On April 30th, 1945, Adolf and Eva decided to end their lives together. They held a small wedding that day, even as the war raged above them. They were married for only hours. After their wedding, they followed through with their plan. Adolf gave orders that their bodies be burned so that no one could find them. This was his final request. His followers carried out these orders, and soon news of Hitler's death spread across the world. People hoped this would bring an end to the terrible war he had started. After Hitler's death, German forces quickly began to surrender. Without their leader, they had no reason to continue fighting, and many were relieved to lay down their arms. Across Europe, people celebrated the news. The war had caused great pain and loss, but now there was a chance for peace and rebuilding. The Allies worked together to help the countries that had suffered rebuild. They wanted to make sure such terrible events would never happen again. News of the concentration camps shocked the world. People learned about the cruel treatment and the millions of lives lost because of Adolf's actions during the Holocaust. Survivors shared their stories, and the world began to understand the full extent of the harm caused by Hitler's beliefs. It was a dark moment in history. The Allies held trials to bring Nazi leaders to justice. Many people involved in the crimes were arrested, as the world wanted to hold them accountable for their actions. The Nazi Party was banned, and Germany worked hard to remove its influence. Books like Mein Kampf were restricted, and new laws prevented Nazi ideas from spreading. German citizens tried to understand what had happened and rebuild their country. Many felt ashamed of the events that had unfolded and wanted to make sure it never repeated. Schools began teaching about the dangers of unchecked power and prejudice. They hoped that learning about the past could help future generations avoid such mistakes. Adolf Hitler's story reminds us of the dangers of hatred and unchecked power. His rise and fall show what can happen when people trust someone who uses fear to control them. People around the world remember his actions, not to honor him, but to learn from his mistakes and protect future generations from similar dangers. Today, we teach history to ensure people understand that prejudice and cruelty can lead to harm. Remembering helps us build a world that values peace and respect. Although the Nazi Party is gone, people continue to fight against hate. Schools, leaders, and communities work to stop prejudice, hoping to prevent another tragedy. Adolf Hitler left a dark legacy, but through learning, the world hopes to build a better future. His actions left scars, but we can choose a path of kindness and respect. This story shows the importance of understanding others and the need to stand against hate. History teaches that peace and unity are always stronger than violence. The world will remember the suffering caused by Adolf Hitler, but people now choose peace over war. His story remains a warning, showing the need to stand together for good. By learning from the past, we can work toward a safer, kinder world for all. This is the best way to honor those who suffered and to protect future generations from harm. This commitment to peace gives hope that history will not repeat itself. By choosing understanding, we can build a world free of fear, with respect for all people. After World War II ended, Germany faced the challenge of rebuilding. Cities were in ruins, and people had lost loved ones, homes, and hope. The task was immense. The Allies worked with Germany to restore peace. They helped rebuild schools, businesses, and homes, giving Germans a chance to start fresh after the war's devastation. Germany was divided into sections controlled by the Allies, who each had a role in helping Germany become a peaceful nation once again. The war had taught the world hard lessons about power, prejudice, and the dangers of unchecked hate. People knew they had to protect against such harm in the future. Leaders from different countries created the United Nations, an organization meant to keep peace. They wanted to prevent another world war from happening ever again. The United Nations encouraged countries to work together to solve conflicts peacefully. This was one of the many ways the world tried to prevent the rise of another Hitler. Germany also worked to make changes. New laws banned Nazi ideas, and symbols associated with hate were not allowed. People wanted to erase any trace of the dark past. In schools, children learned about the Holocaust and the dangers of prejudice. They were taught to value respect, kindness, and peace. Germans hoped that by teaching about the mistakes of the past, they could help prevent future generations from repeating those errors. The goal was to build a safer world. In other countries, people also learned about the Holocaust and Nazi Germany. These events became a major part of history classes so young people could understand them. By learning about this dark time, people everywhere were reminded of the importance of standing up against hate and protecting those who are treated unfairly. Many nations promised to protect human rights and work together for peace. They wanted a future where all people could feel safe and valued, no matter where they lived. The lessons of the Holocaust showed that silence and ignorance can allow evil to grow. The world saw the need for courage in standing up for what is right. People agreed that even small acts of kindness and courage can make a big difference. By caring for each other, communities can protect against hate and unfairness. In Germany, the memory of the war serves as a reminder that peace is valuable. The country continues to honor this history by choosing unity over division and conflict. Survivors of the Holocaust shared their experiences, hoping their stories would teach others. These stories show the strength of the human spirit, even in the darkest times. Through their words, people understand the importance of compassion and kindness. Their stories help us remember that every person deserves respect and dignity. This understanding helps prevent future violence as people see the value of working together and caring for others. It is a commitment to peace in honor of those who suffered. Today, Germany has changed greatly. The country honors those lost in the war and celebrates peace. Memorials and museums help people remember the tragic events. These places teach visitors about the dangers of hatred and the importance of accepting others. People from all over the world come to learn and reflect on the past. This respect for history is Germany's way of promising to protect future generations. They remember the past so that they can move forward in a better direction. Each year, countries around the world mark Holocaust Remembrance Day. This day is a time to honor those who suffered and to renew the promise of never again. On this day, people share stories, light candles, and join together to remember. It is a reminder to stand against hate and protect everyone's right to live in peace. The memory of the Holocaust lives on as a strong lesson. People hope that these memories will help future generations make choices that keep our world safe and fair. The story of Adolf Hitler shows how dangerous unchecked power can be. Remembering this time in history helps the world stay cautious. Peace, respect, and unity are vital. By learning from history, people are inspired to build a world based on kindness, fairness, and courage. This is the lasting hope that came from a very dark time. While the scars of the past remain, the future can be shaped by the desire to protect, to respect, and to make sure that love overcomes hate. This is the world's commitment.